My name is Harit Mankad. I run the engineering team here at SupportLogic. And for today's session, I'll be joined with Krithika, who is the Senior Director of Product Management. So between the two of us, we are going to have this session. She's going to be showing us some demos, and we'll be talking about the signals that are generally avoided, or we miss the signals, and how those implicit signals that we typically miss from customer feedback, how it impacts us, and how we can actually use those signals and help our customers and ourselves grow our business and grow our revenue. So these signals are typically the ones that we see post-sales, right? So the observability of the signals post-sales, what we hear from the customers, and then we typically get the feedback from customers in terms of CSAT, in terms of voice calls. They just showed us some negative sentiments, some positive sentiments. How do we bring all of that together then to help us grow our business and make sure that anything that is coming in, if we were to look at the typical conversation style, what we hear versus what we listen, we hear a lot of things. These signals are the ones that we need to listen to help us with our growth. How do we then take those signals? So there is the how and the why. I'm going to be talking about the how, the why, and Krithika is then going to talk about how we are going to be doing that and how SupportLogic can help us with that. So one of the things that when speaking with customers, and I used to be part of support organizations previously, one of the things that we have learned is that unless we listen to those sentiments and we are able to capture those sentiments and then use those sentiments, analyze that, and start becoming proactive in our responses back to the customers, there is always going to be a challenge in terms of how do we make sure our customers stay loyal to us? How do we make sure that the customers come back and spend more money with us? It could be through renewals, or it could be through helping us expand to other business units within the same organization. So any company, any organization, support is now becoming very crucial, and the experience that the support engineers, the agents, and the managers give to the customers after the sales is playing a very crucial part in the customer defining whether they want to continue with that partner or not. And we need to also understand that these customers who typically are from a support to a product company, but these are also the same people who are actually using support in different organizations as individuals. So those sentiments, we still need to be able to capture, because the sentiments remain the same, right? If I see good experience with one vendor, I expect the similar positive experience with a different vendor, and my brand loyalty stays with them. And so that is something that our systems are now starting to capture. And because we are using a lot of AI now, what it also helps is that it removes the emotion to some extent from the feedback. And so it's not, we are able to analyze and process those sentiments unbiased. So it's not, I don't this customer, so I'm going to look at the sentiment in a different way, versus I like this customer, so I'm going to look at the sentiment in a different way. So from the analytics perspective, we are able to get that noise out. And this information is right. What I just spoke about is backed by data, right? And the numbers speak for themselves. What's also happening is when we speak and when we speak to Microsoft, for example, has spoken to a lot of customers. The feedback they got was 96% of the customer base or the support base is expecting these services from the support team to be extremely high. The expectations are rising day by day, right? What used to work about 5-6 years ago, it doesn't work anymore, right? They expect faster responses, better responses, more point responses rather than generic, I have a problem, here is a general solution. That was accepted at one point of time, it's no longer accepted, right? The positive experience that the customer has, it then steps into the realm of when it times for renewals, when it times for expansion. 89% of the customers who are happy will actually put in more money with the same vendor that we are working with. Again, this one, we need to understand that there is a lot of sentiment. A happy support engineer is actually going to give it positive feedback about a product. They have to solve lesser problems, or they solve it faster. The third most important thing now that we see is human emotions, right? That is becoming the currency. And like I said in both the previous examples, the sentiments of the person working on the case or the sentiment of the person who is reporting the issues, right? That is now playing a very powerful role, and analyzing that, capturing that information, and then getting proactive ahead of that and saying, okay, the customer is probably unhappy, there is an unhappy situation, how do we get ahead of that and then solve the problem for the customer? So that, again, that emotion, and trying to make the negative emotion into a positive emotion, is again playing a very significant role when it comes to the bottom line of customers coming back and buying. So where this leads us is to the expand module, where we can actually turn some of these invisible signals. Again, where it really helps, if you see a dashboard, it gives us a very good indication of where we stand today, how the emotions are showing up, how the responses are showing up, and where the sentiment analysis looks like. And if we can get a good handle of this, it then actually helps in reducing the churn, which is again talking about how we can, one is obviously increasing the revenue, but also making sure that the royalty and the retention remains. And like I mentioned, we can drive the expansion into other business units or other customers, and then we can increase the NRR. With this, I'll let Krithika come in and then talk about how we do it at SupportLogic.
Wonderful. Thanks, Harit.
Thank you.
All right, our expand module is powered by 5 ambient AI agents. I know you've heard about our AI agents through the sessions from early on. So I'll be double-clicking and unpacking 3 AI agents today. Sentiment agent, I think you heard a lot about it, how it detects over 40 plus customer sentiments and how those translate into scores, which then can be acted on. And likewise, we talked a lot about escalation agent. So in this session, we are going to look at the account health agent, voice agent, and the summarization agent. Now let's start with the account health agent. Now this is responsible for assessing the overall health of the account, and it computes a score for you. Typically, a higher score represents the healthy account. It indicates the engagement patterns are positive, while let's say some of the factors that contributes to the account health are not going in the right direction, then your account health drops. So we use the score as a mechanism to identify if your account is healthy or it needs some love and care. Now, how do we compute or determine this account health score is based on broadly these 5 categories that you see up here. Now, case trend is one determining factor, and what underlying each one of these categories, we have many factors that feed into it. For example, for the case trend, we have the case volume over a period of time, and not just the case volume, but also the spike and dip in the case volume, and also the case activity within certain cases. Another contributing factor here is the business impact. So what feeds into this is what kind of cases do we have? Is a customer having a lot of escalations? Are they likely to escalate? Do we have churn risk cases? Do we have high severity cases? All of these factors are used to determine what is the business impact for the health of the account. And then the next category is the product complexity. Now, some issues are resolved by support, but some of them translate into engineering issues or feature requests. Some issues are resolved once and for all. Some of them keep coming back. So that kind of translates into how complex the product is, and that also acts as another factor in assessing the health. The 4th factor is the overall support quality, and what determines this is your resolution time, the factors that you're typically familiar with. How did you miss the SLA? How's your back and forth conversations going on? Are you able to finish it in 2 turns, 3 turns, or is it you're having like 50 back and forth conversations with your customers? How many case owners did it shift? Did it move from one team to another? All of that factors into the quality of the support. And the last that we look into is the customer experience, which is determined based on the sentiments and signals that we detect. And we focus here specifically on the negative and the needs attention signals across all the cases that are associated with the account. And of course, if we are able to get the CSAT and NPS from an external system, can feed it into that, we factor that as well in determining the health of the account. Now, each of these factors, again, out of the box, we have a certain weightage that we assign to it. But depending on your business needs, you can choose to say, you know what, product complexity is not really a factor that I care about, and I don't want to use that to assess the health of my account. You can drop the weightage on it, and you can give more weightage to the other factors. And not just at a category level, even at an individual factor level, you will be able to fine-tune the right weight so that based on your case volume, you'll be able to find the right data distribution. And speaking about configurability, there's a lot more. For example, you may have really high volumes of cases, or it's probably more moderate, so you may want to look at last 5 weeks of data, or you may want to look at last 12 weeks of data so that you get a good understanding of the health of your account. So that's, again, something that you can configure. So in a nutshell, what the account health agent does is it looks at all of these different metrics, information about your support interactions and account level interactions, and it looks at the data distributions and trends. It identifies outliers, it identifies anomalies, and based on that, it assigns some weightage and computes a score. So that score is a very good indicator to assess whether your health is doing good or not, your account is doing good or not. The next ambient AI agent that powers the Expand as a module is the Summarization Agent. Now, this is something that is core to SupportLogic. It powers a lot of workflows. And it's, I would say, like under the hood, it's powered by a 3-layer architecture. The first one is a data lake layer. So this is where the step 1 through 5, where we're collecting a lot of this information. Where does it come from? It is fed from this data lake layer. So it has this is a layer which basically has all the multiple data that we are ingesting from multiple data sources. So this is where all the deep insights about your cases and about your case trends, your escalation trends, your SLA trends, all of those insights are determined in this layer. And that is what powers the summarization. So let's take a deeper look at how we do that in case of an account. So when we summarize an account, we look at all the cases that are tied to an account. Let's say for a period of 5 weeks, again, that's configurable how far you want to look. We look at those cases. We tap into something called an auto summarization, which helps you understand what issue is pertaining to that particular case. So once we understand the issues of that particular case, or of all the cases that are tied to the account, we are now able to get a good pattern. Next, we go into broader case level metrics, such as what about the SLA trends in general for this particular account. We look at the escalation trend and so on. And the third level is looking at multidimensional information, such as agent insights, keyword insights, and patterns across the board. All of this information is now powered to our second layer, which is the prompt management system. So this is, again, another smart engine that we have, which is used for processing all this information that you see up here. It takes that information and it generates a dynamic sum prompt system. And it's not just that, but we also have a lot of guardrails in place, and fallback mechanisms that helps us protect this information from any security threats, if there is any unexpected downtimes. So this second layer protects all of your data from external sources. And then lastly, we have the third layer, which is integration with the enterprise LLMs. So we get all the case data, we define the right prompt, we put all the guardrails in place, and then we pass the right information over to an enterprise LLM to generate a summary, and we get a controlled response back. And that gives you, and you'll see in the demo how the summary output looks like as a user is concerned. And the third agent here is the voice agent. Now, this is powered by our cognitive AI stack. The first layer here is the data extraction engine. You're probably all familiar with the data extraction engine, where this is where we bring in the layer that brings in the data from your enterprise systems. We stitch the data between the different CRM systems and all the enterprise systems. This layer is also now able to extract voice calls and voice transcripts from any UCaaS or a CCaaS system. It takes all of this voice-related data, and it is able to normalize it and save it as, let's say, a comment at a case level or an interaction in the context of an account. Now, once we have this normalized data within SupportLogic, we are able to do the signal detection. Now, signal detection, again, we have custom AI models based on which we are able to detect very nuanced signals. We have seen that in the earlier sessions. Now, this is fine-tuned not just for text, but also for voice. It is able to detect these signals, taking into consideration the typical nuances that you would have with a voice conversation, abrupt back and forth conversations, short conversations, abbreviations. It is tuned to understand the subtleties involved in that. And we not only do a text-level analysis, text signals, but also acoustic signals are detected on these voice calls. Now, once we have all of the signals that are detected on the voice calls, what we are able to do is, using our context engine, build a good understanding of all the interactions that happen in the context of either a case or an account and build a holistic score. So essentially, we have these 3 agents that power the entire account experience, which I will show you now. All right, let's say you're an account manager or a support leader. Now, what is really important for you is to be able to be on top of the health of your account. You want to be able to assess what are let's say the health is one aspect, but not just knowing the health of the account, but what are the factors that contributed to the health of your account. Now, as you can see here, we compute the account health on a weekly basis, and we also build a trend for you, which shows how the health of your account has been doing over a period of time. You can double-click at any point in time, go back and check what factors contributed to the health as of that day. Now, in this case, we see that the health is pretty fair, and there are a lot more factors that contributed to it, but you can choose based on your business what factors matter the most, and that's what you can double-click on when you're analyzing the health of your account here. Now, in this case, let's say I want to double-click on cases that had a low sentiment. I can do it right from here, where I can get a quick assessment of all the cases with impatience, follow-up, not helpful, some with a churn risk, all of these that contributed to the health of this account. Of course, I can double-click on it and go ahead and look at the case summary. I can follow up with the corresponding support engineer, and so on. So you can do that with all of your contribution factors. Not just that, but so this is the section that is powered by the account health agent that we talked about earlier. And now we have the account summary, which is powered by the summarization agent. Now, as an account manager, I get to see the current status of the account. It tells me some analytical information about how many cases are open, but not just purely analytical information. It also is able to give me information such as what are the high-impact issues that could actually sway the health of this account. So it goes one step beyond to assess, like it has 400 cases. Of the 400 cases, where do I now need to pay attention to? And it not only tells you that this particular case is of high impact, and Martin is the one that's working on this case, but it also tells you what is the underlying issue of this particular case. So this is where, if you think about the previous slide where I was talking about how the summarization agent is looking at your individual cases to identify context, it is looking at your case level escalation trends and all the other insights, all of that built into this summary that you're looking at here. And it gives me a very quick view of all the signals that I need to pay attention to. Now, analytically, of course, I'm going to have a lot of signals over here. There's going to be like, I have 107 needs attention, but at a summary level, it also identifies the ones that I really need to pay attention to. At this point, I can just double-click and go in to each one of those cases and take care of those. And what's more important is not just addressing the current issues that are burning right now. I can fix those, fix the health of the account, but I also want to make sure that those issues don't keep happening again and again. So the overall patterns and trends is where that becomes very useful, because now I know that in this case, for example, there's Martin who has a very high caseload, and and significantly high. This is probably a conversation that I need to have with his manager to make sure that the assignment is happening properly so we don't end up in the situation where there's an agent overload. So these patterns are very helpful in ensuring that the health of the account stays good and doesn't drop again. Now, we looked at the health of the account from a support perspective. But not just from a support perspective, the account health is influenced by a lot more that happens outside of the support organization, which is your customer success, your account managers. They are going to be having interactions with the customer, and the signals from those interactions also are going to influence the health of the account. So we capture that as well over here. Now, this is an example of my team having Zoom calls with my customer. So I, as an account manager, I can see that there's a renewal coming up. There's been a churn risk, so there's been a surge in activity where my team has been working with the customer, and I can see the signals right here. Besides the support signals, I'm able to build context and understand what kind of signals the signals are getting detected when outside of support, the customer success and account managers, when they are interacting, what is it that we are seeing? Holistically, this now helps me understand not only where the account is, where I need to double click on, who I need to talk to, so that we have all the right information to ensure that we have a successful renewal or an expansion discussion with the customer. Now, all of this information is also presented to you it can be presented to you right within your CRM. So we call it the iframe. This can be embedded irrespective of what CRM you're using. So if you're an account manager, you don't have to come into SupportLogic to see this information. So let's say you're working out of your CRM system, and you can see that FC Tokyo has a churn risk right from here. You can do the initial analysis and then decide if you want to double click and go further into SupportLogic to get more information. So we give a lot of information in terms of escalation, sentiments, and even a high-level summary also. You can take a look at it right from here. So with that, I'm going to go back and double-click on the voice integration. All right, so we have several out-of-the-box integrations that we have built with the players that you see over here. On the left-hand side, you see the CRMs that we integrate with, and on the right-hand side, you see the UCaaS and CCaaS vendors that we integrate with. I'll talk about each one of those, go one at a time. So with Salesforce Service Cloud, we have a direct integration. So what that means is if you have either AWS, which is AWS Connect, which has a direct integration with Salesforce Service Cloud, or even if you have a third-party telephony provider that is integrating with Service Cloud, we will be able to capture those voice conversations through the Service Cloud integration that we have and bring it into SupportLogic. Now, once we get those interactions into SupportLogic, we are going to treat them just like any other, because we are going, like I explained, with our data extraction layer, we normalize all the data that we bring in from any system, and we save it as a case comment, which then helps us apply all the signal detection and all the technology that we already have on top of the voice signals. So once the voice signals are detected, then we are able to now, let's say you have an omni-channel case, and you have a case started off as a web case, then you have multiple voice conversations. So we bring all of that in context of a case, we detect signals, and we score the health of your account. The case itself is scored based on all of this information. So I think it's the entry point. Once it's in the system, you're able to leverage everything else that we already have. Now, looking at the other vendors here, with 8x8 and Zoom, we have a slightly different integration. So here, irrespective of what CRM you have, if you have, let's say, a voice transcript from an 8x8 or from a Zoom, we will be able to bring that into SupportLogic either in the context of a case or in the context of an account. And we will be able to process the information just like how we did like I explained. Once it's in the system, we just do the signal detection, we do the scoring, it directly impacts the health of the account and so on. Now with NICE, we go one step beyond, where we not only look at voice transcript, but we also look at voice calls. So if let's say you're not doing transcription and you have a voice call recording in the context of a case, we are able to ingest that voice call into SupportLogic, and we do the transcription. And once we have the transcription, the rest of the cycle is the same, right? We save that as a case comment, signal detection happens, scoring happens, the rest of the workflow works as is. Now, I'm going to, again, further double-click on Zoom here, because we saw the demo of how, in the context of an account, as an account manager, I was able to see all the interactions that my CS team or my account manager team had with the customers via Zoom call. Now, how do we make that happen in the context of an account? So it's not just voice cases, not in the context of a support, but also in the context of an account. We want to be able to tap all the signals. So technically, how we do this is, as long as your account managers or your CSMs, whatever calls and conversations that they are having, if we are able to get a link to that information in the context of a case or an account that they're working on, we just need that link. Once we get that association, then we are able to take that, and we are able to work with Zoom directly to get the corresponding call recording or the transcription, detect the signals, and the rest of it is the same, right? Like, I don't want to go through each one of those, but the good thing is, with every vendor, it's a plug and play for us. We have a very sophisticated architecture that can be easily, we can just plug and play any new vendor that comes in with a slightly, at most, we're probably going to need a slightly different parsing technology, but that's about it. And with that, we should be able to go up and running. Now, in this case, with Zoom, we are able to not only bring the Zoom call, but we support two channels, meaning like we're able to detect a customer versus the internal organization, irrespective of how many participants that you have on a Zoom call. Let's say you go have a big Zoom meeting, you have 10 people from your support organization, you have 5 people from your customer joining the call. We'll be able to identify those channels, identify the users, be able to map them as a customer versus SupportLogic, and be able to bring that into, as an interaction into SupportLogic, and detect signals on all of them. So I think the key here, the key takeaways for us here is, when we are talking about the health of the account, we don't want to miss any signals. We want to pay attention to subtle signals, be it in the form of a deteriorating health score, or be it in the form of a churn risk signal, be it in the form of, or even a renewal signal for that matter, right? Like, we even detect like renewal and expansion signals. All of those signals is critical for you to act on. That puts you in the driver's seat. It gives you not just a summary of what is happening around that account, but also it shows you how you can take the next step, right? What actions can you take? It gives you possible next steps. You'll see more of that tomorrow. But it gives you the right context and actionable insights to be more proactive and put your health, make sure that the health of the account is in the right place. And it's not just support, like as I was mentioning, you want to look at your health of the account more holistically, and every signal, every conversation, interaction counts. We want to be able to tap all of those, detect those signals, and when you do that, the impact is multifold. I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
So we have time for a couple of questions if you're willing to entertain them, Krithika. And
sure.
I'm just going to start jogging down now.
So you mentioned Zoom. We're not using Zoom, but we have Salesforce, but we have Genesys as our telecom vendor. And so those are all recorded. That has actually sentiment scoring on it too. But then the customer wants to get into a screen share session, and so they come off the phone and they go on to Teams or whatever other thing that they have, and that gets recorded, and then what happens there? Because I don't see anything happening with Teams on there, so do you take that file and put it into a repository, and then that can be used for capturing all the communication?
Yeah, so we don't have an out-of-the-box integration with Teams, but like I said, our architecture is plug and play, so it's very easy for us to introduce another vendor and integrate it within SupportLogic. The integration would work essentially the same way. As long as you have the recording and you know that it has happened in the context of, let's say, a case, or in the context of an account, that's all we need to know. As long as we are able to get that link between the case or the account and that particular voice call recording or a transcript, whatever you give us, we'll be able to take that and normalize and put it into our system so that we can do everything else we do.
Are we saving that in Salesforce or in
Within
SupportLogic?
SupportLogic.
Okay.
We ingest all of that information into SupportLogic. We normalize the data and we save it as a comment inside SupportLogic
Okay.
case.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. When you share the information with the success managers or the account managers, you also allow them to go into the specific case?
Yes. So then,
Because that's something that we sometimes want to avoid, actually. So we want the engineer to deal with the case, but we don't want perhaps some noise that somebody like the success manager perhaps not knowing the specific topic, but creating noise to the engineer instead of helping. So
understood. So I think, so it depends on where you want to have your account managers work out of it. Let's say you want them to be in the CRM. This is very high level information at this point. This is in your CRM where you're not actually exposing the case details, but it is only giving you the right actionable insights for you to take the next steps. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.